It's the Paris Chong Show. It's the Paris Chong Show. It's the Paris Chong Show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Paris Chong Show. Thank you for listening. I'm here with an amazing photographer named Brandon Ruffin, who just drove in today from Oakland.
Just drove in.
I had a
Yeah.
little car trouble, I hear.
Yeah, the Jeep life.
Oh,
We
I
had a
like
Jeep.
Jeeps, though.
I love my Jeep Rubicon.
Yeah,
I would never
Jeeps.
get rid of it, but sometimes
I kind of want a Jeep.
you should get one.
Yeah,
I tell everyone
son's
gets a
trying to
Jeep.
talk me into getting a Jeep, and because I drive so rough, and there's so many potholes and
Yeah.
problems in the roads in California that I think it might be a good idea at this point. So, I am so happy you're here because normally you are not here. So when Brandon told me he would be in town for the holiday, I said, you have to come into the podcast. So I'm so happy you made time to be here.
Of course.
I just met Brandon last year, and this gentleman here used to be a police officer for the Richmond Police Department, but now is a full-time photographer.
Yep.
What a transition.
Yeah. I work. When I left the police department due to an injury, I moved over to. I'd been doing photography
Mhm.
for years, and it was one of those things. I think a lot of photographers that have that kind of a story where you've picked up the camera and people ask you to take pictures, and then one day they're like, we have to pay you something if you
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
coming and taking. And that was kind of my story as far as like transitioning into being a professional photographer. But yeah, now I do my photography work. I do some directing and filmmaking
Mhm.
work, and I'm also I'm at Google as well, and
I know, I love
working
that.
oh yeah, it's a nice mixture of different things. When I first was told about the Google job, they had contacted me. I was like, I don't know. When I first heard the description,
What is your actual title there?
I am an image quality expert
I love
for our
that.
research team there, and we do computational photography, which is now when I first got there was machine learning, you know, in that sense. But now we do a lot of we're doing a lot of AI work, obviously, and a lot of generative AI work, and the big goal of our team has since I've been there has always been to democratize the art form of photography and allow for people to develop their skills as they come, but allow people better access to tools to be better storytellers in their lives. So,
Well, let me ask you this, since you brought it up about AI. I mean, I have mixed feelings about
yeah,
it. So
don't we all?
I,
Right?
d- what, how is that? How do you feel about creating that content? And you're a father, right? And so you
Yep.
have kids,
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't. There's something about AI that makes me think everyone's going to be really stupid soon.
It's interesting. I think so one, I was born in the 80s, right?
Yeah, the
I've
best
always
era.
yeah, I loved
I danced in the 80s.
oh man, I was always jealous of my parents. I'm like, you guys were like
Oh,
adults in the 80s, how
it was
lucky
the
you, right?
best.
I've always loved science fiction. I've always been hooked to. I've always loved the idea of AI, right? And
Mhm.
but now we're here, and it's a very scary thing. And I say that in the sense of the reverence for the technology, the power of the technology. Not to dissuade anyone, but in the sense that when you have technology that's as powerful as what AI is now, and as quickly as it's getting
Mhm.
better, um, you have to have a certain amount of reverence for that,
Mhm.
and you need to have a certain amount of like responsibility
Mhm.
that you take in when dealing with it and when you're developing it. And so for me, I've been working in the AI space since 2020 with Google, and we've developed some really incredible things. One of the first projects I worked on there was our real tone project, and this project was aimed at one, calling out that there was an industry wide sort of fairness issue when it came to photographing people of color. Not just
Oh,
photographing,
wow.
right? Even with movies or anything that was based off of the color profiles of film were not really tuned for darker skin tones, right? So the darker you got, and it didn't mean you were my color. You could
Yeah.
be many shades above and many shades below, and it still wasn't meant to sort of capture you well. And so that again, that lack of fairness uh, pushed into how things were tuned, even when the digital world came in. And so this project that we worked on was
Wow, that's
we brought a lot of
interesting.
experts in who were in the world of filmmaking, photographers, color grading, as many people as we could get in,
Mhm.
and we talked to them. We had them go out and create work. Kind of just dissected their process and how they were able to get really exceptional works through their process, and just asked them like, how do we make things better? And we took that and we created some things that were able to make the images. I specifically work on the Pixel
Okay.
phone, so the camera on the Pixel, and I work with our Photos app, which is part of our. You can hold your images in Photos, but it's also about the editing suite that we have in Photos. And the main goal was how do we make sure that we can provide really high quality, fair images across the board so everyone can be proud of and feel represented when
Yeah.
they're photographed on these devices. And it was a huge success. And for me, I got hooked to that feeling of like, okay, technology can be used
Right.
to impact real world systemic problems. And you may feel like, oh, like, well, this is frivolous. Who cares if the camera captures you a little bit darker than you are? If they can't see this, they can't see that. But I mean, these things as kids impact the way we feel about ourselves,
Yeah.
and it goes into adulthood, right? Like everyone deserves to be seen,
Yeah, how
and
they
so
want to be seen.
100%. So I love that, and
Okay.
since then, we worked on. I've been able to work on other projects while at Google, and I love that aspect of it. I think I've been a big advocate while I've been there of us ensuring that we are designing tools for
Mhm.
people to use, and we're not designing replacements for people.
Yeah. What you're describing it in a different way that I've thought about when you're talking about color correction and imagery. I'm always thinking about like no one's going to learn, nobody's going to know how to spell anymore,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
how to actually create a sentence or a paragraph because it's so it's amazing how it can just make everything sound so much better. I mean, I've only used it once in my life,
yeah,
but for an invitation. But I'm like, wow, that sounds really good. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to use it, but I don't want to get into the habit of using it for everything, and I don't it's just I was thinking of it from that point of view, but it's nice to hear what you're talking about as far as it's relating to photography. So that
yeah. I
does make
mean,
sense.
there's so many ways in which AI is going to allow us to look at things that
Hmm.
we either wouldn't have the manpower or time to do or to do as
Yeah.
quickly. There's some real benefits, especially in the world of medicine and in the health world, and in our world where it comes to photography and imaging and storytelling. But again, we have to be careful and we
Yeah.
should be cautious. And uh, I would like to think this is being
Yeah.
super optimistic, but I would like to think that as a species we can look at humanity as like we need to be connected to certain things,
Right.
and so I don't know. Um, I also grew up in the time where like I'm going to the Terminator movies, right, and then
Yeah.
looking at AI did there, but it's a very interesting time to be working in technology, specifically that kind of technology. But I'm very grateful for my time there. I've learned a
Yeah.
ton with being at Google and have been able to contribute to some of these projects. I have a great deal of pride in that, and also it's my job there is so very technical
Hmm.
that it doesn't sort of break me away from or exhaust the space of me as an artist, which is like
Right.
a really big thing. That was the one reason why I thought about not taking that job years ago, was I'd already worked a job. So years ago when I lived here in LA,
Hmm.
right out of college, I was working at a design firm, and I was doing graphic design at the time. And in
Hmm.
fact, I was creating these pieces as an artist using Photoshop and a couple,
Right.
illustrating a couple different things to make my art. And I would go to work and I would be completely drained from
Right.
making these flyers and
Hmm.
branding and things like that for these companies that I had never, weren't even in the state of California, because we did work all over the US. And I realized it was hard to sort of have your day job stretch into your artistic life.
Yeah. It kind of dampers it, right?
It does. And even if you're not creating things that are like extremely creative and avant-garde art, it's still coming from the same place, and
Yeah.
so I would just feel very depleted, and so I was afraid that that might happen with this job, and it didn't. This, like I said, this job was a little, it was more technical than that, and I've always been into computers.
Hmm.
My dad got into the IT world, in the mid '90s, and got me. I was working on and messing around with computers like in the fifth grade, and gaming
Wow.
and all that. So
Yeah.
I've always had that part of my my personality as well. I've always loved technology. I've
Do
always
you
loved
play
computers.
video games?
Yes. Okay, so
Oh.
recently though, I'm not. They're not for good, but I
No.
recently sort of gave them up
Oh,
because
my son just is addicted. Oh,
they're good. I mean,
he loves them.
I love them, and
What do you play?
I play a lot of Call of Duty.
Okay.
I play a lot of NBA 2K.
Mhm. He
But I
likes
mean,
Madden.
oh yeah, in my heyday, I was a big Madden
Uh-huh.
fan. But I was always into like first person shooters, and see, I don't, you have to be a certain age to remember when Mortal Kombat
I
first
never
came
wa
out,
I
and
don't
it was just
understand it,
like
but
it. Well, that I remember, I want to say it was because of this game.
yeah.
It was because of Mortal Kombat that they had to start putting the rating
Yeah.
on games because the game was so violent. And I was in Louisiana at the time. I would go to Louisiana every year
Mhm.
to stay with my grandparents and get my parents get a break, and they'd send me and my sister to be with my grandparents for the summer. And I remember seeing this game and just like begging my parents every time I talked to them, like, "Can I please get this when I get back?" And I had to have been like maybe 10 or 11 at the time,
Mhm.
right? So it was really on the fence and
Yeah.
like if this game was going to be appropriate for me. And yeah, yeah, video games have always been a big thing. And in fact, my big stimulus for working on computers. My dad sort of used gaming as a carrot, and but I had been working on Photoshop around that
Yeah.
time as well. Like it's definitely not like what Photoshop is now, but
Yeah.
I had been working on Photoshop, and there was a couple other like little programs. There was a 3D program called Bryce at the time, and the CAD programs, AutoCAD, and
Mhm.
things like that. So I'd always had this connection to software for
Yeah.
making images and imaging. And so now it's interesting now, after having an entire career in law enforcement, that somehow like full circle come back around
To
to
art.
working in,
So
yeah.
do you think any of those video games kind of persuaded you to maybe be in law enforcement?
Maybe one of my big draws was I grew up in Richmond, California, and it was growing up there, especially in the '90s, was an insanely violent city,
Mhm.
and I sort of lived in this sort of this like suburb portion. Like it was part of the city, but it was in between the city and another
Yeah.
spot. And but all my family was scattered all throughout Richmond, and I still went to church
Yeah.
in the south side of Richmond, and had family in North Richmond, and I have family all over the place. And so even though I was off on this kind of on the outskirts right outside the city, everything that was still happening there still impacted me.
Right.
And we had our own issues because a lot of the guys I grew up with, they had come out there to stay and get in a better environment because they were, either in trouble or having issues in the area they were in Richmond. And yeah, it was just one of the it was a hard place. It was a really beautiful place. I'm working ideas for a project actually to sort of show
I love
that.
that.
It was a really beautiful place growing up, and it was also a really hard place growing up. And
Well, the Bay Area is like that. My whole family's in the Bay
yeah, yeah, I
Area,
know.
so
I can't
yeah.
wait for you to
I know.
come
I'm gonna
down.
see you more this year because I need to go see my family more this
Yeah.
year. Yeah, I'll be there. And so you were in law enforcement. Now,
Yeah, I wanted to help. I mean,
it
I
seems like a
just
really rough place to be in law enforcement.
it
Did
was.
you ever shoot anyone?
No, no, very thankful that I did not. I mean, I was in situations where that was an option,
Hmm.
but I was very thankful that it didn't lead to that. I never, I had all the training and all that, but I never, that was never my
Yeah,
interest. I wanted to be part of
but
a
you carried a
solution.
gun.
Yeah, so ultimately, I worked patrol for a couple years, but ultimately I ended up in a special investigations group, and we, went all over the place. We dealt with gangs, narcotics, parole. It was sort of we had these like specialties, and I did that for years, and I really loved it. But it was interesting. I had
Yeah,
some conflicts with the ways in which the criminal justice system played out in this country. Some huge conflicts with that. And again, I wanted to just be something different. I wanted to be a solution.
yeah.
I had really bad experiences with the police. Really bad experiences with the police growing up. I even had some bad ones while being a cop. The two times I'd almost been killed was other police not
Oh,
recognizing me as a cop
oh
and almost
no.
killing me, right? And so it was a difficult situation, but I think I was young when I
Hmm.
went in, and sort of thinking, okay, I can come in here and I can change this and change that, and you realize the system can be very, very insulated.
Is that why you left?
I left because I crushed my hand,
Oh,
and that was the end of that. It was I couldn't do the job anymore. Um, because I was still very optimistic that at least my presence there was helpful, and it was crazy. Like so when I left, I would get calls from folks that had been in prison, who had been, were out and had been in the streets, gang members. That's like we're just random people that you wouldn't think you would hear from again. And they're like, hey, we really appreciated you while you were here. And we
Yeah.
always looked at you as like a part of this place, and you were just different. And it's like we appreciated you being here. And that, I have some really big mixed feelings with it. And one of my things was like, man, if I'm not here, it's just one less person who really wants to do good that's gonna be gone,
Yeah.
and I felt like my city was gonna lose uh but I felt like were my strong suits when I was working that job, which was empathy and understanding and the ability to take care of business when needed. But that means so many different things at different times. And there are the parts of it that I loved was being there for the people,
Yeah.
and those are the folks that a lot of those folks they remember that. And when the police arrive, it's usually on the worst day of somebody's life. And
Mhm.
the interactions you have in those times will stick with you forever. And I saw really a lot of bad things, a lot of bad things. Um, but I also saw like some really beautiful things. And the city always was what I knew it was. Like I didn't have the same kind of hangups around gang members and drug dealers
Yeah.
and folks who were doing crime as maybe some other people, because I also grew up with folks who were like that, and I knew that they were regular people trying to figure out life like everybody else. And perhaps things that I could say or do, or the amount of respect that I could show them,
Mhm.
um, while also being like, all right, well, this is what we have to do now, but let's have a conversation. I think those things were the little gems I was trying to leave behind,
Right.
because
Sounds like you did.
I hope so. There are folks that are jaded and go like, you're wasting your breath. But I always thought, like, you never know when something you say might kick in for
Mhm.
somebody and impact their life in a really big way, or help them make a decision that they maybe wouldn't have made. And again, like being super optimistic, but that's what I felt like my job
Yeah.
was. Yeah, I came there and I had to carry a gun, and my job involved taking people to jail sometimes even taking family members to jail.
Uh,
But the reality was is that I think that I had gotten a lot of respect where, when I was from there, and two
yeah.
is like I treated everybody with respect.
And I can't imagine you not. You're so sweet and such a gentleman. Well, your parents must be awesome.
My parents are great, and I
They
think a lot
raised
of
such a good
times
man.
I think about the differences between me and some of the folks I grew up with. And I wasn't the smarter than everyone or more talented than everyone. I had two really great parents who were invested in making sure that me and my sister had all the essential things that we needed, which didn't always include the newest video games, which I
Yeah.
would, kind of be upset about, or like, the newest pair of shoes or whatever. But
Yeah.
they found the money to put us in the good schools, the best schools they could afford.
Yeah.
They spent time with us. They had us invested in sports. I mean, like, I don't know where they found the money from. We weren't a wealthy family at all, but they found it. And they prioritize is what
I
it
hope your
is.
parents are still here.
They are, yeah. My mom and dad are they still live in Richmond, so the same
Oh,
house I
yeah.
grew up in.
Oh, wow. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And so yeah, they were a huge factor in me, being able to make the choice, giving me
Parents are important.
they're
It's so
important.
important. Yeah.
And I think about that with my two daughters. It's like
Of
I,
course, you had girls.
I know. My mother told me, she said, "You're
Payback.
getting girls."
No, it's good to have girls, isn't it?
Yes.
How old are they?
Uh, my oldest is 11 and my youngest is 3. And so
Oh,
they'll
big
one will be
difference.
12 at the end of the year, and the other will be, yeah, a very big difference.
That's like, are you gonna have more?
Oh no, we're done.
No.
Yeah, we're done.
Oh,
Two is a sweet spot. My youngest, I love her to death. So
they're
she
cute
is
girls, aren't they?
fiery. Yeah, they are. And I think as a man, like having daughters,
Changes you.
it changes you in
Mhm.
a really great way. And you just have to adapt and learn to move
Yeah.
differently. And I mean, even my dad, and he talks about raising me and my sister, and he's like, I tried to raise your sister like I was raising you. And he always reminds me, like daughters are different,
They
and
are.
they come with their own set of needs and strong points. And so I'm very very grateful, even now, to have my parents sort of guide me as I'm now a parent. But I had I came from my family was great. Uncles and aunts and cousins and
Yeah,
just a big community of people who were there to show love and wrap around you and fill you with the stuff to help you make good decisions. And that I mean that's why I've been able to accomplish anything that I've ever accomplished to this date is a reflection or a result of my family.
that's
You know,
amazing. You have a good family.
very blessed,
It's
very very
sad.
blessed.
It makes a huge difference, and it's sad sometimes people don't have a good family. You could see that lack that or not lack, but the missing
Yeah,
or their sadness about
it's
those people.
huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
So you basically went from shooting and video games to shooting at the police with the police department, and now shooting with the camera.
Yeah.
So it's all been about. It's kind of had a similar little.
That's consistent thread.
Yeah.
It's interesting is that photography has been, I got into. I don't even want to say I got into photography this time, but I started. My parents bought me like this Kodak Easy Share camera. You
Hmm.
remember those things? They're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and they bought me this. I actually went to Northridge, like 20 something minutes from here, 30 with traffic
Yeah.
an hour from here.
Yeah, well, it's far. It's far today.
Very far.
Very far
So I
away.
went to Northridge and I
That's
ran
cool.
track there, and we were on campus all the
I
time.
heard that's a good school.
It was a really good
Yeah,
school.
someone told me that it's a great school.
It was I wish I would have actually gone and take I took a couple art classes while I was there, but I
Yeah,
wish I would have
yeah,
gotten involved. There was a really good program for like photography and photojournalism and broadcasting. I
yeah,
remember those being big things while I was there, and I just hadn't couldn't wrap my mind around any of that at the time. I was doing different forms of art. Um, but yeah, they bought me this little easy share camera, and we would just be on campus when everybody else was home for breaks.
mhm,
We had really short breaks because the track season was all throughout the year, so we always had to come back early from our breaks to train. And I had this camera. I think I was like 19, and it was definitely no like it
yeah,
wasn't anything you were gonna print and frame, right? But it
yeah,
was I noticed that I loved to like document people and what we were doing and hanging out. So I'd make these little videos. This is YouTube was just coming around, so it wasn't even like anything you would upload
yeah.
to
Well, you're on
YouTube.
YouTube on this show.
Yeah, but now, right? But like back then, it was
I'm
all
horrified I'm on YouTube. I mean, I don't know
oh,
if it's good or bad. I'm like, "Oh, it's on YouTube?"
well, that was like the era
Yeah,
of the cat
yeah,
video was like the only thing
yeah,
being loaded to YouTube. And so I don't even know why I was taking these videos, or taking these pictures, but I knew I liked to
yeah,
do it, and so that was not serious photography at the time at
mhm,
all, which is that's a subjective idea anyway. But I realized that there was something there.
mhm,
And so I got a little bit more of a serious camera a couple years after that, which is like this Canon G9,
yeah,
which was a point and shoot Canon, but it had like you could do raw photos on
mhm,
it. It had these little you could do do the exposure triangle on it essentially, right? So I started shooting on that. I maxed that out. Like bought some, they had these lens attachments you could add to it, even though it was a zoom lens. You could add a attachment to it and would change it to a telephoto or it would change it to a wide angle. And then from there, I think it was like 2008, maybe. I got a Canon 40D.
okay,
My parents gave me this as a gift because they saw that I was loving photography and I needed a more serious camera. And that was it for me. Like I was taking pictures ever. From that point on, I was taking pictures and I was really trying to learn
yeah.
photography as an art form.
So what's your favorite subject matter to take photos of?
It's hard to say.
I know
I
I love
love
your work.
this
I
is
love what you're doing.
thank you.
It is always a little different,
I try. Yeah,
You can see some fine art, some street.
I just life, for me
Yeah.
the camera is like my journal. I don't write my days out so
Mm-mm.
much, but I always have a camera. I have two cameras on me now, right? Like I always have a camera with me, and what happens is like I can look back at those images and my mind goes directly back to that, right? Like music is like that for me. Like I could hear a song and it transports me right back to a
Oh, I
time,
love music.
right?
I
Like
love
it's
music.
always strange to me when someone
Yeah.
says I don't like music. I'm like, what
I
planet
don't
are you
I don't
from?
yeah, I couldn't be friends with someone
Yeah,
like
I
that.
go, yeah.
There's something missing with
It's like
that
it's nice to
person.
meet you. I'm gonna go listen to some
Yeah,
music. You wouldn't be
I
interested.
have to listen to music all the time, every
I love
time.
it.
I wrote my jingle.
Did
But
you?
I wrote and sang my little jingle because I was
Okay.
like, I don't wanna I have to have music on there, but yeah, I love music, and I'm going to see Shaka Khan at the
Oh my
Hollywood Bowl for my
goodness.
birthday. I love Shaka Khan, And I
Who
love
doesn't
I
love Shaka Khan?
again, if someone didn't, can't be your friend. I don't know, I love
Yeah.
Shaka Khan. Yeah, I just music, and it does transport you back to a time, even a bad time. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes
it's
when
not
you
always
hear
good,
like
but
that
it
sad song, like there was a song I'll Stand By You by the Pretenders that always reminds me of when my mom was dying, and I could even cry
yeah.
thinking about it because it just reminded me of it. That's what was out at the time. And every time I hear it, I lose my mind and
It's
start
it's
crying.
so,
I could cry right
music is
now.
so engaging that way. I have a similar experience from when my younger sister passed from
Oh,
cancer, and it was just like there was an album that was out at the
mhm.
time, and, it's I love the album, it's beautiful, but it, like, connects me right to that. Or there's,
Yeah.
there's the Healer by Erykah Badu,
Oh, yeah.
and she premiered that song. I wanna say the first time she played it was, at the Concord Pavilion, I think we were in, and,
Oh,
or wait,
Concord.
was it No, I'm sorry, maybe it was the I can't remember
I love
exactly,
that theater.
but me and my sister, my mom made us go to this concert together.
Yeah.
And not that we didn't want to go together, but
Yeah,
it's just like my mom was like, "You guys got to go." I
stick
think she had
together.
extra tickets or something like that. And so me and my sister go, and I just remember like it's one of the last songs that played. We're on this beautiful like grassy hill. The sun is going down, and this song comes on, and it was like a big portion of the song is um paying her respects to Jay Dilla, who had passed away some years before
Mhm.
that. And so I have this experience, like one of my favorite songs of all time. The first time I heard it was live with Erykah Badu playing it
Yeah.
with my sister. And so then you fast forward to many years later, and my sister is passing, she's dying, and
Oh,
we're all, my whole family is
horrible.
there, and that song like brings me back. So anytime that song comes on,
Yeah.
it has changed for me, obviously, since she's passed, but it's deeply emotional. It takes me back to two places.
Mhm.
Takes me back to her deathbed, but it also takes me back to this memory that I'm glad, like this
There was
place
good
that we
and
weren't
bad.
even gonna
Oh,
go together, that became such a
I
magical
didn't
like
know your
moment.
sister died. That's so
Yeah,
sad.
yeah,
I'm
she
so
passed
sorry.
of breast cancer
Mm.
at
I hate cancer.
30. She was gonna be 33.
Oh, I
Yeah,
God, I remember you telling me this. I'm so sorry. Yeah, my mom passed away. She was only 54, and I had it's I hate cancer. I just hate it. I hate it.
cancer's
I hate
tough.
it. We need to do a cancer charity thing
Cancer is
soon.
tough. Like we all, it's hard
It's
to know
awful.
anyone who has not had their lives like impacted by cancer, and so yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty of photography. As I was thinking about, I think what has always attracted me to it is like recognizing that these moments aren't forever.
Yeah,
These
they're
people aren't
not.
forever. Right. So like photography is I was talking to a group of friends, but it's like a visual obituary.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
It's a memorial. Everything we photograph is actually a memorial of something. And I was thinking about that one day because I was looking through my photos of like, and there was, oh, this building is gone. They got rid of.
Yeah,
They
no, I love
built it.
looking at vintage photos of things
Yeah.
that aren't there anymore. That's so that's like one of my favorite things. But it's funny when talking about music, and it's weird because radio music, everything's so connected. But when I was a kid, there was the one funk station in Las Vegas because everybody else was listening to Styx and Journey
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And my sisters and I were listening to like Prince and Confunction and Lakeside and all this
And
other
see,
stuff. So
Prince has got that
yeah,
deep
no,
Oakland
I so
connection.
we so there was they used to do those competitions to win tickets to go to see the concerts at the Aladdin Theater, and they'll be like, we'll take the 21st caller to win tickets to the Commodores, Sister Sledge, and DeBarge." And I'm like calling and calling. They're like, "You're the 21st caller." I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?" When they're like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Paris." "And what school do you go to?" "Oh, junior high." And so I got won tickets, and my mom took my sister and I, dropped us off, and then again, they had another competition like a year later was to see Lakeside Confunction, and I forgot who else the
And
other
you were
band,
on it.
and I won
Making that go,
again. I
oh
won
my goodness.
twice in a
You're like,
year.
Paris again?
I'm like, "It's me again, Paris,
That's such a
or
bygone
junior
thing
high."
too, though. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, I we're trying having to listen to the radio
I
to
know,
listen to
when
your favorite
yeah, and
songs,
I
or
went twice, so even till this day, if I hear something that there's a competition, I think I still can win, but yeah, I got to win twice,
that's
and so I
super
love
awesome. Yeah,
music, yeah, and then I actually went to take, broadcast journalism classes at SMC, and before I
nice.
even got out of the class, I was already on the radio, so this is, like, full circle for
Yeah,
me to
that's
be doing this
amazing.
again, and then being able to talk to people about, art. Now this is you at Pride in Miami, right? I'm
I
just
wish I
kidding.
was I
Is this
I
you?
wish I looked that good with
No,
wings
you
on my
you
back.
you
I
do look that
wish.
good. Look at you. Jesus, it
I'm
looks like you just
trying.
never leave the
I'm
gym. Are you kidding
trying.
me? You're like a muscle man.
Yeah, if you would have seen me
The
at Northridge
y
where I was like 180
No, you look too good,
pounds
and
eating
you
Snickers
smell
every
really
day.
good too,
Nah,
by the way. This guy smells really
I'm big on
good.
smell.
What are you wearing?
I am wearing, what did I put on
Because
today?
my son is obsessed with cologne. I'll
I'm
have to get
wearing
him some of this.
YSL, I think,
I got him
today.
that.
It's a
No,
good
no, the
one.
one in the black bottle that
Yeah,
yeah, I got him
yeah.
that for his birthday. That's not
You know
cheap.
which one I like, even though I
Okay,
the,
Leo.
Sauvage, the
Oh,
Johnny
with
Depp.
Leo and I always make fun because there's a big picture of it on the Century Cinema
Yeah.
Sauvage. I'm like, Leo, you got to get some Sauvage.
The last commercial was so dramatic, but I was like, "I like the scent."
No, I haven't tried. We haven't smelled that one yet. I'm sure he has,
Get him
but
that one.
kidding about this. This is actually a photo of by Sean Black, one of our favorite guys. But it is in Miami during Pride. I
It's
was
so
just kidding.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I
well, I
know. I
think we have
love
Pride
it.
going on in the Bay right now, I
Do
wanna
you
say. Or was
really?
it maybe it was last week? Yeah,
I miss Pride this year. Usually, because when we're right there, but usually when Pride's happening, we'll get stuck there with the traffic. So I've just kind of been avoiding it.
yeah.
So, what are you working on now? When's your next show? We got to work together soon. We got to
Yes.
do something
I was,
together.
like, telling my
Uh
wife, I was
huh.
like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do a podcast with Paris." I was like, "She's the one that gave me the Roger Deakins book, and, that's my favorite," but yes, we need to. I would love to. I always love
How'd you get
coming.
introduced to Leica?
It was interesting. I have been good friends with, Devin Allen for
Okay.
a while, and, we met
Hmm.
online, and it was just that period of time where, creating communities within Instagram, and yeah, Devin and I became friends, and he was shooting Leica.
Yeah.
I was shooting, like, maybe Sony or Canon at the time, and I eventually, eventually I got with Fuji. I was a
Yeah.
Fuji X photographer for some years, and I was starting to get into these, smaller cameras and cameras that felt, more intentional. Cameras that look really good too. Like,
Yeah.
I love the way Fuji's and Leicas look.
Yeah. They're
They just
gorgeous.
they
They're
pay
sexy.
attention to. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are, and they
They
felt
care.
less like just a tool, but
Yeah.
more of something that people really
More
care
like
about
man
holistically.
candy
That's right.
or girl candy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Uh
exactly.
huh.
Like they're just beautiful, and so I was an ex photographer for a couple years, and so but had also was friends with Devin, and I had met Omar Z Robles,
Hmm.
and
I love Omar.
Omar is the
I
best.
love him.
Um, me and Jason ended up being Jason Stock Easy. We
Hmm.
have become friends. I just started having like these friends that were like us shooters, and who everyone. If you're a photographer, you know about Leica.
Yeah.
And so there came this time where Kieran she and I had started having these really light conversations
Hmm.
online, and Kieran was always very busy, but she made time, and we had these really, really just kind of light conversations. And I don't think she knew I was with Fuji at the time, but she was like, "Hey, if you're ever thinking about shooting with Leica, like let us send you something."
That's cool.
It was awesome. It was
Thank you,
surreal.
Karen.
Kieran, I know
Bring.
Kieran's like just this.
It's sad she's not here anymore.
I know, just she's still doing her thing,
Yeah, I know she's still in the
but
biz. It's all
yeah,
connected. It's all
exactly,
one family.
and exactly, and Kieran is just, she's like this shining light,
Yeah.
and has been just like a really beautiful mentor and friend, and just like this big sister,
Yeah.
uh, for me, and so, but so I got a Q2 on loan to just like have for a little bit, and I was like, I kind of
Yeah.
like this. And I was actually in this interesting place with my photography at the time was that I was, I don't know, I was getting fatigued with photography in the way that I was connecting with it, and it
Yeah.
just wasn't feeling as intentional. And um, so started shooting I had an X Pro 3, which is like
Mhm.
Fuji's rangefinder, and that was nice. I mean, that would slow things down for me a little bit, and that was a good slowdown. And I was shooting a lot of medium format film at the time, so I was shooting a Pentax 6.7 and a Mamiya 645. Um, and that was I noticed that I started to enjoy photography more,
Yeah.
and I was willing to take different pictures of things that had caught my eye in the day. When I was using those cameras, I wasn't thinking about where I was going to post it or
Yeah.
if it was going to go in some body of work. None of that. I didn't think about anything about where the picture was going. I started getting more faithful to my own interpretation of what the world was looking like, and being willing to take a picture of it. And I had on Instagram, I don't have like some crazy big following. I have a decent following on
Yeah,
Instagram
I only
and
joined during COVID.
really
Yeah, I didn't wanna go on there, but I kinda had to I had to start doing live stuff for work,
I
so
remember just thinking I don't I come from the MySpace,
yeah,
Facebook
no, I
area
was, like, hoping
person.
it would go away
I
by
couldn't
now.
understand any of it.
But it
Instagram and
hasn't.
Twitter
I
to
shouldn't want
me.
that to happen on the show, but so yeah.
But, like, I didn't understand the purpose of Instagram or Twitter. I was like, it's
Yeah.
like a Facebook or a MySpace, but
Yeah.
I can't really, interact with it was like
They
it felt
have good
limiting.
there's some good things that come from it, though. I've, like, connected with people I've lost touch with,
Yeah,
I've gotten jobs, I've made sales, I mean, so there's good things about it, but it's kind
yeah.
of it's a lot. It's a
It
lot.
was good. I mean, I met a lot of people, I met people during the Tumblr era as well,
Mhm.
but Instagram, I met a lot of people, a lot of photographers, and, it was good, but I think at a certain point, it became one of those things where people, like, knew me for street portraits.
Yeah.
And I was feeling compelled to always create that kind of work because I was like, well, that's the photographer I am. Like that's,
Yeah.
I'm a street portrait photographer, whatever this means. Right. And so I was getting too deeply like just connected to what I was supposed to be doing, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that doesn't exist
Yeah.
in art. And it certainly doesn't exist in photography. And so for me, like starting to shoot more of the medium format film, which forces you to slow down, and shooting on a rangefinder, like well, the X Pro 3 is like it's kind of like a
Yeah.
rangefinder. That was a good process, and the Q2 was I love that, love the feel of it, the portability of it. Like I needed a camera that I could carry around with me
Right.
all the time, and yeah, I mean from there, I don't know what I was thinking. I was trying to buy a
Yeah.
Q, and
Uh-huh.
Kieran had hit me up one day. She's like, "Hey, we have an M11 here in Boston. If you want one." And I've been talking to Devin about the Leica
Yeah.
systems, and yeah, I just it's like, all right, let's do it. And so I bought an M11. I had made a little bit of change in the the crypto space,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, I'll buy this thing. If I don't like it, it's a Leica. It's gonna hold its value. I'll
Yeah.
probably be able to sell it
It's
for
like a
more than what
car, you
it
could
really
sell it.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a
I
car.
might be able to make more money off
Yeah.
this thing,
Yeah.
than I bought it for. I didn't even have a lens when I bought it. I had to borrow my buddy Terrence's. He had a 50 millimeter
Mhm.
Summicron lens that he loaned me for a little bit. Uh,
You know you're a good friend when you lend out your expensive Leica
Man,
lenses.
yes,
I don't know
yes.
how that
We
is.
have been friends for a long
Yeah.
time, and I love him. He has more equipment
That's
than
like
me.
lending some chick your Louboutins. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna do I
it's
don't think I like the sound of any of this.
the lens itself was worth more than most camera
Yeah, no,
bodies,
I know,
right?
I
And
know.
so he let me borrow this cron for a bit, and I was creating work with the rangefinder. It was a learning curve for sure because, like I said before that, I've been on the X Pro 3, which is not a true rangefinder
Yeah,
system, and this was, and so that was a little bit of I loved it. It
yeah,
was like again, it felt like the camera was truly turning into a paintbrush, and I was having a this this really like in-depth experience with the scene, with the subject, with the camera itself,
yeah,
and I was like making this photo. And I know people feel a certain way about folks who say, "Oh, I make the photo." I take photos. I have no problem saying I go out, I shoot, I take photos. Sometimes I'll say I make a photo, but I mean make a photo in the sense of like the camera is all manual, and so everything that is reflected back in that picture is a result of a decision that you made,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Every single part of it, and that was the return to connection I needed to feel like I was making art.
yeah,
And so it really revived a lot for me. I had left Fuji a little bit before that, and which was just I felt like I had done most of what I could do there, and there were so many like Fuji has this pipeline
yeah,
of just like amazing creatives, photographers, filmmakers, and as an ex photographer, we're kind of sitting like at the top of that pyramid, like because they create these different pools for you to one for them to build a relationship with you and sort of understand your work and how they can best sort of amplify your voice and how you can best like kind of move into what Fuji needs, and then they have another like area where it's like, okay, you're part of this. We have built this relationship, and then you can apply to be an ex photographer.
right,
And that ex photographer, that ex photographer role or appointment, I guess, is I forget what it is now, but it lasts for some years and then it kind of rotates. And so I had become an ex photographer in 2020, and it was good, but I felt like at a point I felt, this was what I could do here, and it was like it's time to make room for for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that was that. I had left Fuji. I still have the X Pro 3. The X Pro 3 is a gorgeous camera, and
People
I'm
love that
I'm
camera.
like I every week I'm like, oh, I'm gonna sell it. I don't need all these cameras, and I'll touch it, and I'm like, I don't know, and I have the
Collector.
yeah.
Camera
Um, I
collector.
have the adapter so I can put a in
Yeah.
lens on it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, so
You don't need to get rid of it.
I yeah, I hate getting rid of cameras.
Yeah,
I
that's no.
hate getting rid of
Every people
cameras.
just hate getting rid of things they love.
It,
Now, where can we see the images that these cameras are taking? What's your website?
so my website is roughdraftvisuals.com, which I have a lot of work on. Also have my Instagram, obviously, which is my rough draft,
Mhm.
RUFFDRAFT. Um, yeah, we're working on a few things. There's a project that we just finished up that I'm under NDA on, so I can't
Okay.
can't say too much about it. But it's a really beautiful project, and I got an opportunity to direct. So I got an opportunity to
Awesome.
do some stills work, and so I'm super excited about that. Um, a couple other like directing projects that have come up, and then I'm working on a short documentary that we want to tidy up at the end of the year, and then I'm in the process of getting the last few trips in to finish a monograph that I want to do, which is I think you're gonna really like.
I can't
It's a
wait to
very
see it.
personal, but it's centered around sort of my family and we're in this really obscure part of Louisiana where they come from,
Is that
and
where your family's from,
my
Louisiana?
mother's side is from
Oh my
Louisiana.
god, I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with P Valley. Have you
Oh
seen that?
yeah. Oh, I
I'm
certainly
addic
have.
I love it's in
Yeah.
Chucalissa,
It's
Louisiana. I didn't think it was a real
Tuscaloosa.
I didn't think it was a real town, but I looked it up and it is, but I love that P Valley
P Valley. Yeah. I
On
mean everything
Stars.
about it, the story, the filming
Obsessed.
of it,
Have
like.
you seen it? Oh, can't
And the
st
stories are I mean,
what
the
acting.
acting's incredible,
Amazing.
everything about yeah,
Yeah, big P
me and
Valley fan.
my
I
wife
love
watch
that.
it.
I love that. Me
Uh,
and my son watch it. I'm a bad mom. My son loves it, but it's so I love it. I think it's
well, and Jay
great.
Fonz, he's a really good dude,
Oh,
a friend of mine, my writing partner, so I
Little
write
Murda.
screenplays, like, had the opportunity to talk to him a few times, and, we haven't done any work together, but we've talked about doing some stuff together and doing some
Awesome.
photos and stuff, but he's just a really
Yeah.
kind guy, and it's nice. So sometimes you'll run into somebody from your favorite show, or you get to know somebody from a movie or your
Mhm.
favorite whatever, and they're not as kind as you would hope for
Yeah.
them to be. And so it's nice when you get to meet people who are inside what can be a very tough industry,
Yeah, no, you
still
got
have
it
that
under no
kindness and
one's gonna
compassion.
mess with you.
You
No one's gonna
know,
mess with this guy.
people are people. They be
Yeah.
people, and kindness is not always something that people hold on to. Um,
I don't know why.
I
That's how
don't
I
know why.
roll.
I don't know why. It's so important,
Yeah.
keeping our humanity and having kindness and understanding the importance of life and the little things in life. Like
So
that's where it's
cool.
at.
So
If not for
sweet.
that, what are we doing?
Yeah.
If not
What's
for
it all
that, what are we
for?
doing? What is it all for? And so I think that. So when you ask a question like, "What do I take pictures of?" Like I love to take pictures of life and whatever it looks like that day where I'm at. I love photographing people
Yeah.
100%. But I'm in this place now where it's like anything that I made this commitment to myself that if I see it and it catches my eye, I'll photograph it.
Right
I'll
on.
figure everything else about it later. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing. I mean, I'm shooting a lot of 35 millimeter these days, so
Mhm.
that as expensive
Good.
as film
I know
is, it's
everyone's
like,
complaining about
oh,
the
did it really
film.
catch my eye?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
know.
it's
Film
cool. Film's
people cut
cool.
the
Film's
prices.
cool.
I love it.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
someone needs to figure that out. But so I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
thank you
And
for
you can
having
find
me.
that it sounds like you have a lot coming up, and then we can find out when you can talk more about it
Yeah,
on
definitely.
roughdraft.com. Um,
Roughdraftvisuals.com, but like I said, my Instagram stays
yeah.
fairly updated when I'm feeling social, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, it's good. Well, he's busy with kids and everything else. You sound like a busy
Yeah.
man. You're awesome. Thank you for
Thank you
being
so much,
here. Thank
Chris.
you. That was
Yeah, thank you
awesome. Get
for
over here. Oh my God. It's a Paris Chong show. It's a Paris Paris Chong Show, show, show. It's a Paris Chong Show. It's a Paris Chong Show, show, show.